Good evening, everyone. My name is Kelly Romer, and I am a Public Information Officer with Northern Rockies Team 7. Welcome. Thank you for coming tonight. Tonight you're here to hear an update on the status of the Elmo fire. We'll have members of our team speak to the current and expected weather conditions, the plan for firefighting operations, as well as hear from our incident commander. First, I'd like to just introduce and recognize our agency administrators. We have Amy Kaufman, representing the Confederated and Salish Kootenai Tribes and County Agency. And we have Dave Pokish, representing the Department of Natural Resources. And with that, we'll get started. First, I'd like to bring up Bruce Giersdorf, Fire Behavior Analyst, to speak to fire weather and fire behavior.
Okay, well, good evening. First of all, a question for you. Is anybody here, is this their first meeting? Okay. So what I've done the last couple is just kind of brought people up to speed real quick with what was going on, what happened. And of course, you know that we had those nasty winds that were really pushing this fire hard and whatnot. And thankfully, a lot of that let off. You know, we've come back into some of the same temperature, though, but pretty warm and pretty dry conditions, but luckily we've had pretty light winds the last few days, and the expectation is that we have that again tomorrow, and then we actually have some cloud cover that starts to come towards us here midweek, brings our relative humidity up, should shade things out a bit, and that'll really tone down the fire behavior that's going on out there right now. Although the fire behavior that is going on out there right now is actually it's burning itself out, is what we call it. I mentioned to you that there were some internal unburned areas, that some of those had fire on them, and that's what you're seeing. There's a couple of them that you see when you drive up and look on the hill up here. One of those actually came to life just in the last couple days. And over on the offside, they're up more by Lake Mary Bronan, up in this Division Oscar Tango area, this ground up here, which was the last to burn, which naturally has the most fire in it right now, that's been burning itself up pretty good actually the last couple days. There's still trees that are torching up there. You can see some active surface fire wanting to kind of flank its way along the hill, but nothing getting crazy, nothing getting up and making any hard runs, no big smoke columns, none of that kind of thing. It's cleaned itself up, mostly kind of like mid-slope and above, which is a good thing because we don't plan to chase it way up there. It's just not the kind of ground that you put people in without a good way out and whatnot. And so if it can burn itself out up there, all the better. The group that's been mopping this thing up along the lines, following those lines and working hard, a lot of that fuel is dry enough to hold fire, so they've been really diligent about getting in there and getting water on it and making sure they're getting everything put out and rubbing it up real good and getting a good secure edge back inside and putting that same kind of fire that would be, you know, kind of munching and burning and putting that out so that it doesn't continue to crawl down close and get off and away. So my expectation is that for the next day, tomorrow especially, being a little bit warmer and actually a little bit drier, and I think we're going to have maybe even a little bit more fire activity up there, but I don't believe that it'll come back to what we saw when it was really making its hard runs at all. We need a different condition for that. There is one thing that is changing though on the landscape, and it's changing ever so slowly, and that's the green fuel is drying out, is starting to cure, and the live fuel moisture that's in the timber and the brush that's out there, that is coming down, and that's normal stuff. That happens every year about this time in Montana up at this in this climate. So that's going to continue to happen. You do have a fire up there. You'll continue to see some smoke coming up from time to time in those interior islands that are just burning out. And so I think that's about what you can expect up there. And I think that right now it's sitting in a pretty good spot, and we'll just continue to make progress on it and just keep securing those lines up, and it'll be all good.
Thank you, Bruce. Now I'd like to bring up Ian Morgan, Planning Operations Trainee.
Good evening, my name is Ian Morgan. I'm the Planning Operations Trainee. I'm going to go over what's been done since we last saw you, what's been going on the last few days, and basically the progress on the fire thing. So as you recall, you'll see a lot more black, and that's showing containment of our fire. As you can see from last time you were here, Division Bravo was black last time. Not a ton of work has been needed to be done in there since then, just basically control and monitor. Moving on to Foxtrot, which leaves Highway 28 and comes up the ridge. That's a lot of direct line, a lot of dozer line, a lot of road systems were used to contain the fire. And then what we have up there right now is 2 task force, which include like skidgens, water tenders, engines, crews, and all those folks are up there engaged in mopping up. They're 100 to 150 feet in. They're putting out all the smokes that they can. Also, some of the work they're doing a little bit of repair where they can. They can see there's some real intense fire up there, that there's roots under the roads that had burned out and create holes, so they're filling some of that stuff in. From Foxtrot, so Foxtrot starts at Highway 28, goes up about halfway up that western flank, and that's where the break is with Oscar. And you'll see Oscar's not contained at all. Oscar comes all the way up and up the ridge and then down to Lake Mary Ronan and the Camp Tuffet Road. So that piece of line, that's a very challenging piece of line, and it's very dirty. When we say dirty, there's a road system and cats that have pushed line along the edge, but dirty means that there's like not all the fuels burn. And so the fire edge just kind of goes around basically like a snake. And so that perimeter is really hard to contain because we got to do a lot of work, very laborious. Those guys are using skidgens. They're getting some hose lays set up, and they've been using the helicopters the last couple days to really secure that edge. From Lake Mary Ronan, we go into Division Tango. And Division Tango, there's no containment in Tango right now. Tango pushed up against some hay fields and then some aspen stands and slowed up. And there's quite a bit of dirty edge in there. So I guess, and what I'm saying is, between Oscar and Tango, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of laborious work. So those guys in Tango they're putting a hose lay in, they're using skidgens and water tenders. They've got 3 crews in there doing work. There's a couple pockets with some natural fire, and also with a little bit of ignited fire to straighten out the edge. Because you can imagine, so that line goes like a snake. If there's an opportunity to cut that off, maybe put about 2 acres of fire in there, then that saves a lot of work. And it's faster to contain it that way. So they're doing a little bit of that work. Moving from Tango into Whiskey, which is the far east side of the lake. Very direct line, a lot of dozer line, hand line, any way we could put it out type stuff. They've been securing, patrolling, more of the same. So, and they're actually looking at kind of a glide path. Some of their resources are going to other parts of the fire to help out on those uncontained sections. And then you'll see there might be some gaps in the containment. You might ask why there are gaps in the containment. So those might be a really tough place for us to say, hey, that fire's not going to move. And I know that there's some rock slides out there, stuff where there might be some material burning down in the rock slide, and we're just not comfortable saying that's fully contained yet. So that's why stuff like that exists. After Whiskey, we also have an IA group. We're designated with IA is a top priority for us. Anything that's essentially nearby, we call it in the TFR, the Temporary Flight Restriction Area, we have responsibility for it. So we have a group of folks that are dedicated to new starts, and those folks, when they're not on a new fire, they're helping out the other divisions. And at this time, we just stopped night shift last night. And we rolled those folks into our day divisions, and also we're kicking some resources to that fire to the south, the Redwood Fire. With that, that's all I have.
Thank you, and now I'd like to invite our incident commander, John Thompson.
Well, good evening, everybody. Again, thanks for taking time out of your lives to come listen to us. A couple observations. There's no television cameras here tonight. And it's not full from there to there tonight. So I think we're doing our job. And we're happy we're doing our job. Last week at this time, we experienced something that this team had not experienced in 14 years. It had been 14 years since this incident management team had lost a structure on a fire, and it stung really bad to us. And so we're really glad that things are better. You can tell that things are progressing. You know, they talk to the black on the map. We're getting closer every day with containment. I mean, firefighting is one of the few jobs in the world where your instinct is unemployment. and that's really what we're trying to do, is to be unemployed here. And we're getting close. We've been very blessed as an incident management team. We've gotten lots of firefighting resources to help us, and that is something that has not occurred for us for a long time, because there have been a lot of busy fire seasons. We got some great changes in the weather when we needed it. The wind let up when we needed it. We had great support from this community. We had a great group of volunteer firefighters and a great law enforcement presence that really helped us through this thing. And we're thankful for all those things, because the outcome of this could have been different if those things didn't all line up. And so thank you for all those things. A little bit about what's going to happen from here on out. Just like everything else, incident management teams have an expiration date. We mobilize for a certain period of time. We have standard mobilization time frames. The standard length of assignment is roughly 2 weeks. That doesn't include our travel on the front end and the back end. So we give you 2 weeks of work, and then we go home, and then we get ready for the next one. And so our 14th shift will be on Saturday. We think that we're going to have this fire in a really good place by Saturday. Sunday morning, most likely, if something doesn't go haywire, which I don't think will, there's going to be a smaller organization that replaces us, led by Montana DNRC and the Confederated and Salish Kootenai tribes. And a lot of that organization is going to come from our organization. We've had some folks that came in a little bit late, and they have a little bit of time left. So that familiarity is always really good, to have that familiarity of the incident and things that need to happen. So we're building that organization right now. It sounds like Ian, that you guys just met, will probably be the incident commander of the smaller organization. He's a rock star. He's done a great job since he showed up here as a trainee, so I think he's going to do a good job out there. And we hope that we've got this number of containment up in the 90s before we walk away as a team. But it's been a lot of fun, as much fun as fire is to be in this community, because you guys have been great to us. Because we've been places that weren't always that welcoming, and so it's nice to be here. So the previous nights we've had community meetings where I spoke, I was talking about things that keep you awake at night, and I'm sleeping a little better. But there's a couple of things that are still keeping me awake at night. One of those is what we refer to as exposure to our firefighters. As an incident commander, this is the scariest part of the fire for me. And because we're putting lots of person hours out there, a lot of man hours of work out there, and there's hazards out there. We know there's hazards out there. They're driving the second busiest highway in Montana. They're driving dirt roads, things like that. There's trees that have been weakened by fire. There's rocks that are loose on hillsides. And all those things are hazards to my firefighters. And the longer they're out there, the higher the probability is that something's going to go haywire with one of those things and hurt one of my people. So that's keeping me awake at night. So that's why we're trying to wrap this up as quick as we can. The other thing that's keeping me awake at night is, I don't know if I shared with you guys, when I came up here the first time, I live in Deer Lodge. And you guys can Google if you know where Deer Lodge back. It's a pretty place. And I've spent time here in the Flathead, driven through the Flathead many times. I had 2 kids, well, I still have 2 kids, that now they're in college, but they do a lot of high school sports. And when you're in the Western B Conference, that goes from Eureka to Anaconda. And so you put a lot of miles on, and there's nothing better than driving to Eureka from Deer Lodge in December to watch basketball. And so I've driven through this country a lot, and I've stayed up here at the lake because I would honestly say this is Montana's treasure. And the problem is that I'm a fire person, and you can't take the fire person out of a fire. You can't take it out of us. We're sick in the head, and we're always looking at the what if. And I've driven around this lake many times, and it's like, it's a bad spot. Because the reason why it's a bad spot is because we've done 2 things, and that is we've grown a forest, a beautiful forest, and we've stuck houses in it. And so I'm really worried about the next fire. You had one on the other side of the lake last year that there were structures lost. Now we've had this one, and so it concerns me, and it concerns all of us that are in the fire community. So I think we've introduced her before, but I want to introduce one of my new best friends, and that's Carrie Cooley. And Carrie over here is with Lake County, and I believe you're also like the assistant chief of Rollins Fire Department as well. I mean, she wears many hats. But Carrie has a passion, and that is that she is a fire professional that does not want to see your property negatively impacted by fire. And so one of the things that we can do as a community, and when I say community, I mean every one of us, is that we can prepare our properties for fire, for the next fire. Because I'm willing to bet my kids' college fund that there will be another fire here on Flathead Lake, that structures will be lost. And I don't want that to happen. I'd rather pay my kids' college fund. And so Carrie runs a program where she does what's mitigation work. And what she's doing is she's mitigating that potential risk to your property. And one of the challenges that you guys really have here around Flathead Lake is that none of us are bazillionaires and we can own all the property on the lake. We're just common people that have a lot on the lake or a couple acres or something like that. I don't have a place in Flathead Lake, so I'm jealous. And so it's really hard for you to do mitigation work unless your neighbor does mitigation work on your property as well. And really what we're asking you to do is to create what we call survivable space. We used to call it defensible space. But defensible space implies that we're going to have somebody there to defend your structure. And there's not enough firefighters in the world to defend every structure out there. And so we've converted the word to survivable space, meaning that if a fire is in your neighborhood, your home, your shop, your cabin, your camper in the woods is going to survive. It's not that hard to do this stuff. And I've been doing it as part of my fire program that I manage for the last 20 years. We've treated over 3,000 properties in the Helena Valley through that program. And there's resources out there to help you. Montana DNRC will come to your home and do an assessment for free. You just give them a call. Dave will send a crew out there. They'll take a look at it. And a lot of the stuff we're asking you is, yep, you might have to thin some trees. You might have to prune some branches up. there's also a lot of simple things. How many of us have a jute floor mat in front of our house? One ember that lands on a jute floor mat will burn up your house. Get a rubber one. How many of us cleaned our gutters this summer? I didn't clean mine. I don't clean mine until the water's overflowing the top of it. It's human nature. But there's a lot of little things that we can do. There's some big things that we can do. And you have a rare opportunity at this moment because you have a fire in the background, you have smoke coming up that hill. And what we've learned is that people forget about fires. By the time Christmas Day rolls around, the Elmo fire will be a memory. And so take advantage of what Carrie offers. There's information on the table there, and she's got a lot of good information to share about how you can get this done on your property, how you can rally as neighbors and get some things done. She also has some great showcases of properties where they did do this work on this fire, and if those properties had not done that work, it probably would just be basements in the ground right now. And so I kind of hate to preach at the end of a talk like this, but it does keep me awake at night every time I drive around Flathead Lake. And it doesn't matter if it's Flathead Lake or my country down by Deer Lodge. We see this all over the place. And it causes a lot of stress for us firefighters as we're trying to protect people's lives. So I'll stop with that. A couple things also is that we know as firefighters that we reach a point where we wear out our welcome. What do they say? Family and fish start to stink after 3 days or something like that. Firefighters about 2 weeks. And so we're going to try not to wear out our welcome here, but we're still going to have a strong presence. We're still going to be out there fighting this fire. And we're going to get this in a really good place. Turn back to Dave and Amy so that they don't have to worry about it all summer, because Amy has some other things that she's worrying about right now south of us, and it'd be good for her not to have to focus on this and that. So, but with that, I thank you. Remember, Northern Rockies Teams 7 gauge is success one way, and that's getting each and every one of our firefighters home safely, and that's going to continue to still drive our actions from here on out. So thank you for all you've done for us.
I'd like to get some time for questions. If Ops and Bruce can come up, just so the trek back and forth. Do we have any questions? What are the firefighters doing at night out on the fire line?
So firefighters at night shift. As you can imagine, at night it's harder to see things. So it just depends on what's going on with the fire. So the last week or so with night shift, we've had probably 7 to 8 engines and a couple of overhead and a bulldozer. And that's just in case they're out there, they're trying to cover the whole fire, the whole 21,000 acres, and making sure that nothing gets out. So they're patrolling, they're securing. If something happens, they're there.
Any questions? Are the scooper planes still scooping?
Yep, so absolutely, they're a very valuable resource, and we saw how valuable they were here. We've got a water source right there. They dumped a ton of water on our fire. They're still available to us. We've been loaning them out to other fires. They've been working on the Redhorn fire. We went to Helena. I believe there's still 4. 2 of them went to Oregon. That's a very valuable resource, and people are calling. A couple days ago, I think it was every 2 hours, our air guy was getting a call from Oregon saying, "Hey, we want those." But yeah, we still have them around, and they're just in the local regional area.
owner has had dozer line constructed on her property and fences cut. What is the plan for repair of that suppression activity and is that water bars and water bars on the dozer line?
So as a general rule, if we damage your property during fire suppression actions, we will repair it to the best we can. And this is some of the discussions we're having right now with the tribe and Montana DNRC on how much of that action they want to take place right now. If the dozer line on your property is up against the fire's edge, it's probably going to stay a little bit longer. But all that dozer line will be rolled back in, and if we cut your fence, we will fix it. If it's something that's urgent right now, if you had cattle or something like that, or horses that need to be in there, it's probably something we could facilitate sooner. But if they cut the fence to get the dozer line through, they're going to probably cut it again to fix the dozer line. We don't want to do that. And a lot of times when we do, we call that suppression repair. We do that with different types of equipment. We may bring in an excavator instead because they can spread things out a little bit better. So you may not see a dozer, you may see an excavator do that, but generally we make contact with landowners as that process is going on, because some landowners say, hey, I always wanted a road there, can you just leave that? and we've run into that before, so so generally we make contact with the landowner before any repair actions occur. It also brings up a really good point. Yesterday, the Bureau of Indian Affairs was here with their burnt area emergency stabilization and rehab team, and they started doing their preliminary work on looking at this piece of land out here to see what kind of stabilization may need to occur, because sometimes crazy things happen after fires. If a thunderstorm comes and sits over a hillside, and you have some gully washers and things like that. So they're starting to do their preliminary work on that as well. So you might see people wandering around out in the black, and that's what they're doing, is figuring out burn severity and different things to do some rehab.
Yesterday we had a fire about a mile from my house on the East Shore, and between a hotshot team, the Big Fort team, and 2 helicopters that I think you probably lent to us for a couple hours, they got it out really fast, and I'm very grateful, and the entire East Shore is very grateful, so thank you. And that's not really a question, but we were glad you were in the area. That's it.
How many firefighters are on the ground?
So right now we have a total staff of 608 people on the fire, and I would venture to say that all but 75 of those folks are on the ground. We've got folks here paying bills and making sure people are fed and have transportation and things like that. It takes a pretty sizable support organization to support a fire that large, and so we probably have 75 people in support roles, and I would be one of those support people as well. So we probably have in the neighborhood of 500 plus people out there on the ground right now between fire crews. I think we still have 13 hand crews, and the hand crew is composed of 20 people each. I couldn't even count the number of engines, dozers, things like that. It's a very long list, and our finance people are trembling right now because we have to get them all paid and to mobilize at the same time too. So.
I can be heard, I think. First of all, I just want to say thank you. You guys have done tremendously as an area resident. I arrived late. What's containment as of today, or before our meeting, as per your most recent information, and maybe a projection 3 to 5 or not so, including weather. Thank you. Please.
The question was about containment for today and projection for containment over the next 3 or 4 days.
3, 4, 5, yeah, what do you guys think?
Well, as of this morning, the containment was 55%.
Yeah, so we're up to 55% this morning. We're obviously going to have a little bump today as well, and I'm guessing by the end of the week we will be 90% plus containment. It will be a while before this fire is 100% contained, and there's some good reasoning behind that. Bruce talked about those unburned islands and things like that. We don't anticipate it going out, leaving the perimeter of the fire, but it's just kind of an insurance policy. And anytime we leave the containment just below 100 or under 100, the people that divvy out the firefighting tools that we use on the ground will still give us tools. And so if we hit 100, they're going to say, oh, you guys are fine. You don't need any fire trucks or fire crews. But we know that there's still going to be work out there for a while. And you know, they're not going to be working as actively as they are at this moment in time, but there's going to be work out there for probably a couple of weeks more, for sure.
One or two more questions before we break out?
Mine's not a question, but a comment too. I haven't had experience in fires like this before, but all the work you guys have done and hearing about all the coordination and activity and all the things you do is just fantastic. I just want to thank you from our community to do this.
One more question and then we'll break up and have time at the maps. Seeing none, we'll conclude and before, sorry, is there one more? Before I conclude, I just want to say please connect with Carrie. She's an excellent resource in this community. And again, the fire information line is staffed 7 to 7, and please leave a message. If we aren't able to grab it right away, and we will call you back. That number is 406-818-5200. We will be here through Saturday for sure. And there's information with our website, IncyWeb, as well as updates are shared on the CSKT Division of Fire Facebook page. So please connect with us, and we'll happily share as much information as possible. With that, we'll conclude. Thank you.